Now that you've identified a topic that you're interested in researching using the online database, the next step is to begin collecting resources and citations for your topic. So let's go back in to Opposing Viewpoints, and remember that we get to that database by signing into Blackboard and going to the Student Activities section all the way down to the Media Center, and then to Opposing Viewpoints in Context. And remember that the password for this is all lower, MNOHS. No password for this. And that brings us back to the Opposing Viewpoints section. Now, on the last video, I had decided that the topic that I was most interested in was e-cigarettes and vaping. And when I was here the first time around, it was listed under the current hot topics. Well, those have changed, but I can still go back and find that section. So I'm going to use the search bar here and just type in vaping. And then I want the full topic section about e-cigarettes and vapor products. And you can see that that's right over in this section here. All right. So last time we talked about the fact that you can get a nice overview of your topic by looking at the overview that they include for you in the database. The next step now is to go beyond that overview and start collecting some possible resources that you can use for your actual research paper. The cool thing about using Opposing Viewpoints is that it's a one-stop shop. So very often your teachers will say that you need a variety of resources, so that you shouldn't use all websites, or you shouldn't use all books or all newspaper articles. You should use some of each type. So when you go into Opposing Viewpoints, you have that option. Here is, in this gray band right here, a summary of the types of resources that they have gathered for you. The Viewpoints articles are editorials. There's very often images, news articles, that would include both magazines and newspapers, reference materials, videos. Academic journals are articles that are written for professionals in that area. So example, if you're studying a topic that's of interest to doctors, this might include some medical journals. A section on statistics, audio, websites, we'll come back to that in a little bit. Primary sources, which sometimes your teachers want you to have a primary source, and then magazines. So let's start in and browse around and see what we can find. So for example, the first thing that they show you are these viewpoint articles. Now these are editorials, these are opinion pieces. A good way to use these when you're researching is look at them so that you can see the arguments on both sides. Because they are editorials, you know up front that they're biased one way or the other. These are articles that are written to try and change your mind. So you might not want to ultimately use these as sources for your paper, but this is an excellent way to see arguments on both sides of your issue. So you can see here, very opposite, vaping is an urgent threat to public health right here. And then right on the opposite side, you have vapor products can help smokers quit. So you have both the negative and the positive, the pro and the con arguments. So let's leave those for right now, because what we want to find are some resources that give us information that we can work with for our research. So the first thing that I usually like to start with is taking a look at current news articles and magazine articles. Another nice thing about using this online database, is that it puts the most recent articles first. So you don't get stuck wading through articles that were from several years ago. You get to see right away the very recent ones. So you can see here under the newspaper section, this is within the past couple of weeks of when I've been taping this. This was from October 21st. And then over here in magazines, this article was taken from just a couple of days ago. I'm recording this on November 3rd. This was from November 1st. I'm going to take a look at that. So just click on the title. And once you get here, there's several options that you have. If you prefer to listen to the article, you can click on the speaker if you like to have it read to you. Another nice thing to know up front is that all of these articles are given a Lexile measure. That means it tells you the reading level that it's written at. So this one is rated at a level 4, and if you know Lexile numbers, it's 1180, which is upper level high school level. But that's something to keep in mind too while you're browsing through. That's just kind of a little side benefit you get also by using the online database. It gives you the full article. And now, let's say I've skimmed through this and I think, yeah, this looks like a possibility. I think I might want to use this article. One thing you really need to remember is that you need to save this article. You see the choices here. You can choose to have it added to Google Drive if that's something you use. You can choose to have it added to OneDrive, which you could choose. You could email it to yourself, or you can download a PDF copy of the article. So remember that, keep that in mind, because once you log out of this database, it doesn't keep a history of what you've looked at. So if it looks like something you want, make sure that you download it or send it to yourself. The second thing to do is to keep a citation of everything that you look at, just in case you end up using that for your final research. Now, it's hard to create citations, and we'll look at that in a later assignment, but when you use an online database, it's incredibly easy. So to do the citations, you click over here where it says Cite, and it'll give you a pop-up of exactly how to cite this resource. Now, for most classes at Minnows, your teacher will want you to use the MLA 8 edition. There's a drop-down menu here that gives you 2 other style choices, APA and Chicago. So if your teacher specifically tells you to use one of those, go ahead. If your teacher doesn't tell you, it's always a good bet to use MLA. So there's my citation. Now all I have to do is to select it. I'm on a Windows computer, so I'm going to go Control-C to copy it. And if you're on a Mac, you can go Command-C to copy it. And then what I'm going to do is I have a working bibliography set up on a Word document. I'm just going to paste that citation right there. And now this is the exact way to cite this source. So I'm going to come back to this in a minute. I'm going to save it first. We can close this. And now what I would do, I wouldn't read this super closely at this point, but I'd skim through it and get some idea on what they're talking about in here. And then as I'm skimming, I'm going to come back to this Word document and add some notes. So while I was skimming through it, one of the big things I noticed was that, that it is done or based on a study that came out of Canada at the University of British Columbia. So I'm going to put a quick note on there about that. And I also noticed that this article included some quotes from the Jewel Company itself. And I might want to come back to that. So I'm just adding those notes. When we do this in a working bibliography, this is called annotation, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm taking notes. And notation, I'm taking notes on it. Okay, so I'm going to save that. come back to this a little later. And now I'm going to look for another type of reference. I'm going to go out of magazines and newspaper. I'm going to look at some of the other things here that look interesting. And oh, I see here is statistics. And I think I want to take a look at this. So it's illnesses and deaths across the country. Now in this case, instead of being an article, we have a visual, a graph. And you notice it's got the entire United States on here. The states that are highlighted in blue report illnesses linked to vaping, and in orange, there's deaths linked to vaping. So the thing that stands out to me here is that Minnesota is one of just 5 states that has actually had deaths associated with vaping. So I think, yeah, I think I'm going to want to keep this source to come back and look at a little more closely too. So same thing, I'm going to click Cite. I am going to copy this and I'm going to put that into my working bibliography. And just so that I remember what this is all about, I'm going to make a few notes for myself here. I'm going to say, oops, I did it again. Let's try this again. I'm going to say that this is a map that details states where deaths or illnesses from vaping have been reported. So now I've got 2 sources. I'm going to close this down. And let's look for a third. So I've got an article now, I've got some statistics, and I'm looking at this and I think, oh, there's a video. That looks really kind of interesting. That would be another good, different type of source. The cool thing about videos in the database is that it allows you to watch the video. It also includes a direct transcript of what's being said in the video. So if you're trying to watch and take notes at the same time, don't worry about it. You can get all the information from the transcript. But at the same time, it's nice to have that visual of the video sometimes. So this looks like it's going to give me some more statistics when I look at this. And the cool thing about this is I notice it's talking about United States youth. So that first article that I found was based out of Canada. This one looks like it's citing from the United States. So I definitely want to keep this. So again, I'm going to go Cite, MLA. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to put this back into my working bibliography. And then I'll just add a few notes on this that it includes statistics from the United States. So you notice my working bibliography is kind of all over the place. But it makes sense to me. So I've got it organized where I've got my citation, I've got some notes about it, I've got another citation, some notes about it, and so on. Once you go back and start looking at your working bibliography, that's when you go back and really look into the details. I'd sit down and read this article, I'd look closely at the map, and I'd watch the video very closely. So those are some things that I would take a look at very closely. Now, for this assignment, what I would like you to do is to find 3 sources for the topic that you identified, add citations, so keep a working bibliography just like this, and add some annotations, so put down some notes about what were in each of those sources. And then once you have that working bibliography, you can upload it to the assignment form.